My fellow Virgin Islanders, good evening. I do want to acknowledge my fellow citizens who are exercising their peaceful right to assemble this evening to make their voices heard. I'd like to bid them good evening as well. Last Sunday, I was honored to have had the opportunity to attend a yellow ribbon ceremony at the Virgin Islands National Guard Armory on St. Thomas in honor of 24 National Guard soldiers of the 786th Battalion who are being deployed to Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. As I met each soldier, I was conflicted emotionally, so proud of their sense of commitment, yet so touched by their very young ages. These brave Virgin Islanders have dedicated themselves to defend our great nation and, if need be, make the ultimate sacrifice for the freedoms and ideals each of us as Americans hold so dear. As I stood with their families and friends, each of us took comfort in knowing that these young men are excellently trained and are part of the most sophisticated and powerful military on earth. I am asking each of you within the sound of my voice to join me in paying homage to our men and women in the armed forces who are serving both near and far. As Virgin Islanders, let us thank each of them and their families for their service and sacrifices. I ask all in our places of worship in the territory, and each of you individually, to keep them in your thoughts and prayers for their safe return. Tonight, for a second time, I stand before you, fulfilling one of my duties as Governor of the Virgin Islands, my duty to report on the state of our territory. When I stood here a year ago, I reported to you that the government of the Virgin Islands was nearing the brink of financial collapse. The fiscal year budget shortfall I inherited amounted to approximately $91.2 million. That in addition to this shortfall, the government owed over $10 million to the Wangui Hospital, $26 million to the Workmen's Compensation Fund, $41 million to the Government Employees Retirement System for employer contributions, and over $40 million owed to banks on our working line of capital, or working capital loans. Let me also note that we also inherited a growing debt to the Water and Power Authority of over $42 million owed by our hospitals, and millions more owed to taxpayers in income tax refunds. Yes, a year ago, this was the financial condition of the government we inherited. Tonight, my fellow Virgin Islanders, I'm heartened to report to you that the government of the United States Virgin Islands is receding from the brink of financial collapse, that our territory is surely entering into a state of economic and financial recovery, that albeit slowly, we are poised with many opportunities coming before us, that I can stand here and say with confidence, if we are prepared to continue doing the hard work, all of our lives and the condition of our territory will vastly improve. From a year ago, my administration, this legislature, government workers, and many of you who work and own businesses in the private sector have contributed to the greater sense of hope and better outlook permeating the territory. We, the Mapp administration, are working off of our budget since October 1. This budget, as passed by this August body, is providing 876 vacant funded positions throughout our government. The government of the Virgin Islands is now hiring teachers, police officers, firefighters, EMTs, correction officers, DPNR enforcement officers, revenue agents, school lunch workers, environmental enforcement officers, doctors, nurses, administrative personnel, and yes, recreation leaders, to name a few. These 876 funded vacant positions are in addition to the 590 new employees we have hired since January 5th, 2015. Our administration on December 18th, 2015, deposited after a successful Garvey bond sale over $91 million that will be spent on major road improvement projects throughout the territory. $4 to $5 million on the island of St. John, 46 to 48 million on the island of St. Croix, and 40 million on St. Thomas. In addition, the Main Street Revitalization Project here in Charlotte Amalie, funded at $10 million, has now begun. When I stood before you 1 year ago, the Virgin Islands government had only $32 million of cash on hand, enough to run this government for just 17 days without any new collections. Well, today, the Commissioner of Finance reports that the Treasury of the government of the Virgin Islands holds more than $207 million of cash in hand. Not $207 million to spend without realizing that we're not out of the woods yet. Our economy is in a fragile condition. Our cash on hand has brought us some much needed time to grow our economy by investing in our infrastructure and by attracting new investments to our territory. Our sense of hopelessness and the dire times we have been experiencing is abated. But we must realize that full recovery will require continued hard work, cooperation, and a new strategy on how we conduct the affairs of state. Tonight, we must commit to each other that we will not let perfection become the enemy of the good. That we will give everyone who wishes to be heard an opportunity to speak. And that we will incorporate those suggestions that advance the common good of all. But at the end of the day, we must act. And my administration will act, because faith without work is futile. This fiscal year is the first fiscal year since fiscal year 2007 that our government will end the fiscal year without an operating deficit. Yes, our structural deficit, while reduced, remains, and we must address this reality. But notwithstanding, the Mapp Potter administration has paid to Virgin Islands taxpayers over $78 million in income tax refunds in the last 12 months. We have entered tax year 2015 and have positioned ourselves to remain current and pay income tax refunds that will be processed from the 2015 returns. I am also pleased to report that we have paid down $50 million on our working capital line of credit debt. And earlier this month, Nelson Bowery, our Director of the Office of Management and Budget, restored the 5% allotment reduction assessed against all government departments and agencies. We also have paid $11 million to the Virgin Islands Water and Power Authority on monies owed by the Department of Public Works for street lights. And I will be sending legislation to this body shortly to authorize the government to purchase its first interest-bearing investment security instrument payable to the government of the government employees retirement system upon maturity in the principal amount of $15 million. Under the direction of Commissioner Gustav James, the Department of Public Works has improved roads throughout the territory and tackled some long-standing and neglected problems areas such as Brookman Road and the Cookie Point Road on St. Thomas and others. The western section of Queen Mary Highway, Emancipation Drive, Phase 2 of the Midland Road, and St. Valley Roads on St. Croix, and others, and the St. John Centerline Road. On January 12th, I announced the implementation of salary increases to our hardworking government employees. These are step increases owed to public employees under their respective collective bargaining agreements. The first 7 agencies I authorized included the Virgin Islands Police Department, the Division of Personnel, the Virgin Islands Fire Service, the Bureau of Internal Revenue, the Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs, the Department of Finance, and the Department of Agriculture. These agencies cover over 1,000 employees. Tonight, I am announcing that increases for employees of the Bureau of Corrections, the Department of Education, the Office of the Lieutenant Governor, the Department of Human Services have been reconciled, and we're now authorizing and implementing those increases. About 3,400 employees in 12 agencies will receive approximately $21 million in long overdue raises. And we will continue to work to reconcile the remaining departments as well as quantifying step increases for non-unionized classified government workers. The Director of Personnel has assembled a task force to implement these personnel changes and ensure that all of the increases that we have announced shall be effective January 1, 2016. And for a moment of clarity, and let me digress here, please get your flu shot. For a moment of clarity, we are working to provide some level of salary increases to all active employees. However, in this first round of increases, all employees will not receive all that is owed to them. Given the multiple of bargaining units, employees are owed varying levels of step increases. Some have been fully paid. Some are owed 1 step. Others are owed multiple steps. After completing the first round, there will be bargaining units that will have remaining steps unpaid. However, we want to ensure that as many employees as possible see some upward mobility in their take-home pay. As Governor, I thank our employees, our public employees, for their dedication and commitment. I fully recognize that many of you are working under trying and difficult circumstances. The Lieutenant Governor and I have made a public commitment to pay what is owed as the public treasury permits. We will not hold your hard-earned wage increases hostage, waiting for our re-election cycle. We are committed to working with you and your union representatives. However, we need to ask 2 things of you. Exercise a bit more patience and commit yourselves to work with us to achieve our vision for a better Virgin Islands. We are depending on each of you to commit to carrying your share of the load and to work even harder as we strive to improve the quality of life of our residents. If we can do this, we will have the resources to improve the conditions under which you work, to invest in each of your skill sets through training and development, and to continue to pay salary and step increases. Much credit for our strengthened financial condition must be given to our recently executed and ratified operating agreement with Linetree Bay Terminals, LLC, and to the hard work being accomplished at the Bureau of Internal Revenue by Director Marvin Pickering. I thank the members of my transaction and litigation teams, headed by Commissioner Val Collins, Attorney Joel Holt, Attorney General Claude Walker, and Attorney Linda Singer, as well as others, who worked with me to present to the territory a successful package which resolves many of the complex issues, settlement, sale, and environmental cleanup matters surrounding the former Hess refinery site. The refinery sat shuttered, deteriorating since 2012. While both the former owners and the government filed costly legal actions against each other. During this process, the plant's retirement program fell into harm's way, being owed over $30 million with no identifiable source of money to cover this. Any hope of reactivation or deconstruction of the idle refinery or any comprehensive environmental cleanup of this site was at best elusive. Today, we're on a different path. The pension obligation to Aventa retirees have been made whole. During the first half of the year, we anticipate as many as 200 persons being employed on the site. Our government has received a much-needed respite from our continuous financial challenges, giving us some breathing space to right the ship. The environmental cleanup at the site is now a certainty, including funds and insurance coverage to take care of the known and the unknown contaminants. Costly litigation between the government, Hess Oil, and PDVSA have all been resolved and withdrawn from the courts. The people of the Virgin Islands have received over 541 acres of land, homes, a school, a community center, sports facilities, a bitumen facility as part of the settlement transaction. And tonight, I can report that very shortly, the government of the Virgin Islands, after completing its negotiations, will sign a lease agreement leasing 80 of the 121 homes it now owns for a period of 2 years for approximately $2.6 million for the rental period. The leasing will be responsible for all maintenance, security, insurance coverage over the premises to protect our property against perils in and out equal to the appraised value of the homes. I want to thank each member of this legislative body for your hard work in vetting the proposed operating agreement and your subsequent vote to ratify the same. I extend a special thanks to the 10 senators who voted to go forward with a partner who will make substantial investments in the St. Croix economy in particular and positively impact the entire Virgin Islands economy as a whole. Your yes vote represents progress. It restored a sense of hope to the people of St. Croix. And yes, it helped us proclaim loudly that the U.S. Virgin Islands is open for business. And I thank each and every one of you. On taking office last year, my team identified over $125 million in delinquent tax obligations that we were advised had the potential to be collected in the short to mid-term. Bureau of Internal Revenue Director Pickering reported that as of last week, we were able to collect more than $39.5 million of these delinquent sums, exceeding the Bureau's projection of some $7 million. The BIR will continue its collections efforts, but more importantly, the Bureau will invest in its employees with significant training and hire additional staff to help it accomplish its mission. During this past year, both the Lieutenant Governor and I have worked diligently to build a strong team with a cabinet of competent leaders with diverse backgrounds and skills. Some of these individuals have returned home to help us rebuild our territory. Each of our commissioners and directors work vigorously providing leadership and motivation within their respective departments and agencies, inspiring much needed change in our government. Our people ask for change, for a better quality of life and a better Virgin Islands, and we are working each day to deliver. I am proud of my team. I have every confidence in each of them. I respect their intellect, judgment, and commitment to the Virgin Islands, and I will defend and protect them. I hold each of them accountable to deliver to you, the people of this territory, the best vision and actions to move us forward. This year, one of my administration's top priority will be the challenges plaguing the government employees' retirement system. While Director Nelson Barry of the Office of Management and Budget reports that shortfalls to the GRS contributions are being rectified and current payments are being made in a timely fashion in accordance with law, major reforms to our retirement program for public employees must now be addressed. Floating $600 million in pension obligation bonds and simply turning the funds over to the GRS to purchase an additional 22 years of life of the system is not a fix. My finance team and I will work with members of the GRS board, its consultants, its administrator, and our financial advisors to present a comprehensive plan of reform to the community and retirees on how we believe we can fix this vexing problem once and for all. I ask this body to begin by adding 2 additional members to the Government Employees Retirement System Board who must bring investment and hedge fund management expertise to the board. We are now looking at public pension programs across America that also have large unfunded liabilities and experienced liquidity and poor investment performance. What we wish to identify are best practices that can help shape our course forward. What specific steps did these programs pursue and adopt? What reforms were effective? What role did the employer, the employees, and the retirees play to strengthen these programs? In short, I want a comprehensive and final fix of the system. Yes, infusion of capital is required, but first, the leakages must be addressed and halted. So this year is the year that we must all face our reality and address the shortfalls at the government employees' retirement system. I want to note that when I appeared before you a year ago, I reported to you that more than 210 retirees stood in limbo up to 2 years without any income while they waited to receive their annuities. Tonight, I can report to the members of the 31st Legislature and the people of the territory that in 1 year, we have not only reduced the list to 13, but we continue to work with the GRS to ensure that we do not repeat these grievous wrongs against our new retirees in the future. My administration delivered the fiscal year 2016 budget to the legislature by its due date last May. I want to commend this body, and specifically the chairman of the Committee on Finance, Senator Clifford Graham, and the members of his committee for timely vetting our proposed budget. I can assure the members of this body that the fiscal 2017 budget will also arrive on time. My finance team has begun work on developing a 5-year plan to substantially reduce the general fund structural deficit. When we inherited the government last year, we recognized that we would need to identify a minimum of $600 million over 5 years, with expenditures and revenues remaining stagnant to avoid more borrowing. This is why I continue to repeat that while the Lime Tree Bay Terminal's transaction provided over $200 million, these dollars only provide us with a respite. We must grow the economy to provide new jobs and new revenues. We believe if we can stay our course, we may avoid borrowing for operating expenses for the next 2 fiscal years. We will undertake a comprehensive look at all of our tax and fee structures to determine the efficiency of how we generate revenues. We want to determine how our taxes and fees may inhibit business growth and new private sector investment. We want to stop hurting and inhibiting the growth of small businesses through fees, taxes, and regulations. Most of our economic growth will come through small to medium-sized business activity, and we must help this sector grow. It is therefore imperative that we review and adopt regulatory and taxing policies that spur their growth. To property owners, I am pleased to report that the years of you receiving 2 property tax bills per year are over. We are current, and henceforth, we will issue 1 property tax bill annually. We ask those with outstanding property tax obligations for prior years to make every effort to pay them or enter into a payment plan to resolve your obligations. I want to commend our Commissioner of the Department of Planning and Natural Resources, Dawn Henry, for her work. In 2014, the U.S. Inspector General issued a scathing audit report on federal programs and grants managed by the DPNR. The report recommended that the Environmental Protection Agency remove DPNR management of its programs and halt all federal grant funding to the agency. This recommendation, if it was implemented, would have included halting reimbursements to the general fund for local funds expended on federal programs. In less than 6 months, Commissioner Henry, using her skills and professional relationships with the EPA, worked to turn this debacle into a plus for the Virgin Islands. Working with the Department of Finance and the Office of Management and Budget, the Commissioner had the EPA refund to the general fund over $5.2 million in reimbursements. I want to acknowledge and thank the Regional Administrator of the EPA, Ms. Judith Inc., for her assistance and support to the government of the Virgin Islands. During my and Commissioner Henry's visit to New York with the Regional Administrator, Ms. Inc. also provided me with a report showing that the government of the Virgin Islands have available to it $37 million, including monies dating back to 2011. To date, as much as $27 million is available for water infrastructure projects, to include the replacement of existing but corroded portable water lines. I have assured the people of the Virgin Islands that I will make every effort to spend these monies appropriately and timely. Our Coastal Zone Management Division amassed $4.2 million in collections in 2015, doubling their collections from 2014. And the Division of Enforcement saw an increase in collections from enforcement actions, which totaled approximately $1 million. In addition, and more good news, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service lifted its high-risk designation of the Division of Fish and Wildlife on December 18th, 2015, and increased the funding to that division in the amount of $4.5 million. At the beginning of this year, I asked OMB Director Nolan Bowery to aggressively manage and monitor our grant compliance. We hired Dr. Anita Roberts as Deputy Budget Director for Federal Grants Management at the Office of OMB to ensure that the job gets done. All grants are now monitored by an in-house Virgin Islands third-party fiduciary, our third-party fiduciary. We implemented a new computerized tracking system to monitor each grant. I can assure you that under my watch, I am trying to make sure that no federal money which is granted to the U.S. Virgin Islands is ever returned. Key to our eligibility for federal grant and the growth of our economy is important data provided by the Bureau of Economic Research. This agency is tasked with gathering and analyzing critical economic data to facilitate both private and public sector decision making. The Bureau of Economic Research has completed an employer needs study, and in 2015 was awarded $286,000 from the U.S. Department of Commerce to develop a USVI tourism master plan, as well as an updated comprehensive economic development strategy report, the latter of which has been completed. The robust data gathering is critical going forward as we work toward realizing our ambitious plans for economic growth, and our plans are indeed ambitious. Tonight, I would also like to recognize two very, very special individuals. Ms. Suzette Gomez-Smith, the St. Thomas St. John District Teacher of the Year. And Ms. Monique Marie Mota. Our St. Croix District Teacher of the Year, as well as our Territorial Teacher of the Year. Suzanne and Monique, thank you for your commitment to our students. And Monique is my friend. The Department of Education is the largest agency in the government of the Virgin Islands. On a daily basis, over 14,000 students and over 2,400 employees show up for school and school-related activities. The question that Commissioner McCollum asked, how do you eat an elephant? That concerns me. And the answer is, one bite at a time. The simple analogy is most appropriate when used in regards to the Department of Education. There are literally hundreds of moving parts. It is as big as an elephant. All equally important and each demanding attention. The Education Commissioner took the initial approach of observation, meeting with and assessing all entities within the Department of Education. A careful analysis was made of the structure of the two districts, St. Thomas St. John, St. Croix, requiring that uniformity of operations be implemented in both districts. In addition, a thorough examination was made in regards to facilities, leadership, personnel, academic programs, fiscal affairs, professional development of employees. When school closed in June 2015, major adjustments began. A careful review of the placement of school-based administrators were made, and appropriate changes were made as well. 2 schools were closed as a result of assessing the conditions of those facilities. The old school lunch warehouse, where the rats chased the employees on St. Croix, were relocated. The rats really did chase the employees. The theme that carries the Department of Education under this administration is transformation through teamwork. Transformation of the Virgin Islands public education system requires a new vision of teaching and leading. Today's global economy demands an education system where everyone works collaboratively toward enhancing student achievement. The transformation includes launching an appraisal system that requires teachers and administrators and parents to embark on a new system of evaluation, support, and professional growth. Such support will translate into deeper, meaningful instruction in the classroom based on adopted, rigorous standards. Strategic moves have been made to provide for future leadership. 2 cadres of young administrators with less than 5 years of administrative experience have been trained at Harvard University's Principal Center. A 3rd group will be going in March, and we expect to send several cadres per year in our quest to improve public education and, more importantly, to grow the next generation of leadership for the Department of Education. Transformation mandates scrutiny of student achievement. This includes standardized test scores, graduation rates, and an examination of the intervention strategies and programs we offer our students. We have made a careful analysis of the amount of money this government has invested in our public education system and compared it to its results. Over $1 billion of local money only. Over $1 billion of local money only was spent between 2007 and 2012 on our territory. And we've only, on public education, and we've only received small gains in reading scores, particularly and more importantly at the third grade level. After spending $1 billion between 2007 and 2012, only 13% of third grade public school students read on the third grade level. After spending $1 billion between 2007 and 2012, only 13% of public education third grade students read on the third grade level. That is not a statistic to cast blame. More importantly, that is a statistic that societies and government use on the third grade level to measure the amount of crime you can expect in your community in 10 years and how many prison cells you need. Lieutenant Governor Potter and I ran on the platform of improving literacy in the territory. It is a sad fact that communities can analyze this reading scores and predict future criminal activity. And we know that 60% of African American and Hispanic males that do not graduate from high school experience some form of incarceration before they make 30 years of age. Given the demographics of the U.S. Virgin Islands, this reality is most profound for our community. We also contrast the reality and know that African American and Hispanic children who read by grade level by the third grade become high achievers and very successful at the college and university level. 13% is totally and woefully unacceptable. I've authorized Commissioner McCollum to move forward with a formal partnership with the Center on Teaching and Learning based at the University of Oregon. This partnership will provide evidence-based intervention programs and practices for students in grades K through 3 to address the deficiencies in our students' reading levels. As part of the administration's Reading Improvement Initiative, Commissioner McCollum invited the leadership of the Center on Teaching and Learning to meet with the elementary school principals from each of the islands to garner their support to increase the use of evidence-based instruction in schools. The Commissioner received overwhelming support from 100% of the elementary school leadership across the islands. As a result of the buy-in from school-based leaders, we have agreed to a 3-year commitment to collaborate with the Center on Teaching and Learning to improve kindergarten through third grade reading achievement. This we must do. While we acknowledge that reading is most important We're not sacrificing other important areas of our curriculum. The Department of Education is also moving forward with evidence-based intervention programs in mathematics to meet student deficiencies. As we continue to rigorously stress academic preparation, we're moving back to an old-age model of educating the whole child. This administration is committed to providing a host of academic as well as extracurricular activities to keep our children engaged and stimulated in a variety of activities. Learning must be fun, and in many cases, we must give our children a reason to want to come to school.
Right.
The Department of Education has started planning the implementation of the growth of music in our schools, agriculture in our schools, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics in our school, and sports in our schools. The Department of Education is the conduit by which we will solidify the lessons in our culture, quelbe, scratch band, basket weaving, drumming, storytelling, and more. We will fund and increase our schools' participation in carnival, in festival, and in 4th of July celebration activities. I will ask this body to fund our capital project budget, which will include much-needed repairs to our school plants and the Department of Education facilities across the territory. We will transform the Department of Education. We will secure the resources to bring innovative programs to our students. We will act on providing competitive wages for our teachers and a longer and more robust school year for our students. And we will repair and rebuild our facilities. Ladies and gentlemen, transition takes time. Change takes time. Change is not easy. Our public education system will not only undergo a metamorphosis, it will drive the systematic change this territory must undergo to be a competitive member of the global community. Quality public education is the vehicle that will bring an enriched and improved quality of life in these Virgin Islands. University of the Virgin Islands has helped us move forward in preparing our workforce. Our university is pivotal in preparing a highly competitive workforce for the territory. Last year, the UVI School of Education received national accreditation. Grants were awarded to train our people in cybersecurity, and I recently approved legislation to fund the creation of a new nursing program on St. Croix. We will continue to work with the Board of Trustees and Dr. David Hall on new innovations for the University of the Virgin Islands. I will be meeting with Commissioner McCollum and Dr. David Hall, UVI's president, soon to help us determine the best path forward in utilizing the recently acquired vocational school at Estate Home. The Division of Personnel is now accepting new applications for employment with the government online. Almost immediately, the community will see and hear ads from the Division of Personnel advertising vacant positions within the government. The ads will be seen on social media as well. We are seeking 876 qualified persons to fill 876 vacant positions. The qualifications and compensation of the various positions are on the division's website. Persons interested in working with the government of the Virgin Islands can view the recruitment announcements and apply online. Of course, interested applicants who don't go online can also visit the Division of Personnel on each island to apply. Our economy is definitely improving, and we're seeing the upswing as the tourism sector grows. The numbers for overnight guests, both on St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix, are increasing at a rate of over 10% over last year's visits. The upswing is also being experienced during the summer and in the out of traditional winter season. Our challenge in the U.S. Virgin Islands is how do we remain competitive and attract even more visitors to our shores. This is going to require a reinvigoration of the visitor experience we offer to our guests. The public and private sectors in both districts must come together to make this happen soon. On St. Thomas, the Main Street Revitalization Project has begun. Soon thereafter, we will begin the next phase of the Veterans Drive Project as well. I am asking the leaders of the West Indian Company and the Government Employees Retirement System to come together to develop a plan for a complete rebranding, rebuilding, and reinvigoration of the GERS shopping areas at the West Indian Company dock. Folks, can we embrace some truth? The shopping areas now feel and appear to be out of date. The tired, stale shopping experience. This area must be a catalyst to wow the visitor when they disembark from the cruise ships. We must have passive and active attractions, a greater variety of shopping, brighter colors which beacon and lure the visitor. In addition, graphics of our history and culture that promote other areas in our territory must be displayed. I am asking both WICO and the GRS to present a plan to me within the next 90 days on how they would reinvigorate and re-energize the visitor experience at this site. I want both entities to know I ain't got no interest in viewing no plans, no pictures, and no new paint. I want to see a plan that will drive visitor spending up and an experience that will lure cruise ship visitors back to the territory as overnight guests. In furtherance of improving our tourism product, I invited all taxi and tour operators to Government House to meet with me and the Commissioner of Tourism, the Executive Director of the Port Authority, the Police Commissioner, and the Executive Director of the Taxi Commission. First, let me thank all of the participants who attended these sessions on both islands. We discussed our quest for improving the transportation product and our position in the region. We talked about improving the level of services to our visitors. We discussed what role the government can take to aid the industry to improve its services, and we discussed the implementation of water transportation within Charlotte Amalie Harbor. Our conversations were candid and frank. I was pleased to hear many of the taxi operators speak to how they felt service could improve, what they hoped the government would do, and how each member could view their business model in a different way. The Department of Tourism is providing training on a quarterly basis to improve the visitor experience. We are focusing specific attention on our taxi operators, and the government is working with them on customer service as well as cultural heritage and history awareness with a goal of improving our overall tourism product. Out of my meetings with the taxi industry, I have asked this legislative body to make continuous annual training for the industry mandatory as a condition for license renewal. I have asked this body to adequately fund the Taxi Commission. I've submitted, and you have approved, a good complement of members for the Taxi Commission. Listening to taxi drivers and tour operators, I am confident that our transportation industry and its members are ready to offer a renewed product, better service, and provide a more positive experience to our visitors. Senators, we're asking you to do your part. The U.S. Virgin Islands is standing before a huge opportunity to be the premier destination in this region. We have the unique opportunity to host the most high-end, fickle, and demanding traveler through to the bargain basement hunter. Most importantly, we have the greatest competitive advantage of turning day visitors into overnight guests. We must find new and creative ways by targeting and focusing on and supporting hotel development. And let's be honest, hotel development and the protection of our ecosystems and pristine environment can coexist. The Department of Tourism reports that the average overnight visitor spending has increased to more than $600 per day, and that hotel occupancy increased by double digits from last year. Therefore, we need new branded hotel rooms in the territory. In 2003, the Public Finance Authority commissioned a destination study by HVS International pertaining to the future development of hotels and meetings for the island of St. Croix. I've asked the PFA to have this destination study updated. It is my administration's objective to send this body, before year's end, a development project for the construction and operation of a branded hotel facility of at least 4 stars and not less than 250 rooms for the island of St. Croix. In the coming days, I will announce a project team of persons from both the public and private sectors who will assist the administration on putting together a transaction deal with a major brand for this facility. On January 22nd, 2015, I met with Mr. Carl Holtz, President of New Vacation Operations and Disney Cruise Line at Government House, St. Thomas. During our meeting, I learned that Carl had a long and historic ties to St. Croix. Out of my pleasant surprise of Carl's Cruisian ties, I asked him for his help. And Mr. Holt graciously agreed to help St. Croix by lending a team of Disney professionals to look closely at what the visitor experience is on the island and what, if anything, we could do as a community to improve this experience. In addition, the Disney team would help us with an assessment of St. Croix as a cruise destination. On November 15th, we hosted a team of 4 Disney professionals and executives. The team met with the government, private merchants, along with taxi and tour operators. The team members immersed themselves as cruise passengers and were able to get a full experience as day visitors to the island. The team's presence and work with the community went very well. On November 17th, I hosted a closeout meeting at Government House with the team and the business community. The Disney team has promised us a comprehensive written report by mid-February, and we are looking forward to receiving it. Tonight, I wish, on behalf of the people of the Virgin Islands, and particularly the people of St. Croix, to extend our sincere thanks to you, Mr. Carl Holtz, and the members of his team from Walt Disney Parks and Resort. Thank you, Carl, for your help. I am pleased to also announce that the unhealthy competition that we have seen in the past between the West Indian Company and the Virgin Islands Port Authority is now over. The U.S. Virgin Islands has instituted a single unified cruise tariff for the Port of Charlotte Amalie. It matters not where ships berth, the tariff is the same. Long-term berthing agreements by both the West Indian Company and the Port Authority have been reached with Royal Cruise Line and Caribbean and Carnival Cruise Lines, positioning us for market stability and growth. In addition, WICO and VIPA have recognized that all cruise vessels coming to St. Thomas are coming to a single destination, the Port of Charlotte Amalie. The single tariff removes the competitive confusion when ship schedule calls into the Virgin Islands. Marketing efforts are at an all-time high with an overall increase of 25% in advertising for fiscal year 2015. We will expand our advertising efforts for the territory as this August body has allowed us to increase the hotel occupancy room tax by 25%. These funds are going directly into marketing and enticing overnight visitors to our shores. I must point out, however, that all overnight accommodations, hotels, villas, and condominium units must be properly licensed and pay their fair share of hotel room taxes in order to be a part of our tourism marketing program. There will be a zero tolerance policy on all 4 islands for those entities not in compliance with the law. I have directed the Director of the Bureau of Internal Revenue to work closely with our esteemed Commissioner of Tourism Beverly Nicholson Doty to ensure that all overnight accommodation entities are in full compliance with the law. I'm grateful to the members of the legislature for working with the executive branch to amend the STARS Act, which allows us for the first time to offer incentives to the film and music industries. We have already started to see an uptick in interest and inquiries from production companies. With the changes to federal law on what is widely known as the six-pack rule, there is a real opportunity for the redevelopment and recapturing of the marine charter market, which will have a positive impact, a positive economic impact. This bodes well for our overall commitment to the development of our marine industry. Last year, the U.S. Virgin Islands saw a marked increase in visits from the yacht transport ships carrying vessels in and out of the territory, some bringing mega yachts as large as 200 feet in length. This increase in luxury boats generates revenues and employment opportunities through the operation and maintenance of these large vessels. The Commissioner of Tourism and the Lieutenant Governor and I are looking and creating opportunities to offer incentives for major sporting events for the territory, especially during the off-season. I will be sending a package to this body soon to reposition horse racing in the territory as the centerpiece of sports tourism in this region. This proposal will involve both horse racing facilities in the territory, St. Croix and St. Thomas. It will require substantial capital investment from a private sector partner. We will offer very few, if any, tax incentives. We will rewrite the role and the authority of the Horse Racing Commission. We will ban doping and drugs from our racing facilities and require veterinarian oversight of the horses participating in the races. We will expand our support for events like Paradise Jam and offer for the first time a monetary pool to the Women's Championship game. This event has a return on investment of more than $24 for every dollar spent. The demand exists, and sports tourism can be a major source of revenue, especially for St. Croix. We must continue to work to bring in new business and investors, but we can't afford to ignore our local entrepreneurs. Last year, I instructed the Economic Development Authority to aggressively work to solidify partnerships with our local banking institutions in order to back loans to small businesses that are credit-worthy. The United States Department of Treasury awarded the Virgin Islands over $13 million for this purpose nearly 5 years ago. The United States Department of Treasury awarded the Virgin Islands over $13 million for this purpose nearly 5 years ago, but the program has not ever been utilized until now. This past year, nearly $5 million in loan guarantees resulted in 29 businesses receiving over $13.7 million in loans from local banks. These new loans are projected to create 115 new jobs and preserve 422 more. This wave of lending activity is signaling confidence by Virgin Islands business owners. This year, the EDA achieved the highest rating any entity can receive from external auditors, demonstrating that they have performed at an elevated level of integrity and accountability. This also means that the federal grant monitor agencies and other financial institutions can have the utmost confidence in partnering with the VI Economic Development Authority. When I stood before you last year, I observed, equally important to growing our economy is providing safety and security in our communities. We cannot attract investment to our territory if our streets and neighborhoods are unsafe. Not many Virgin Islanders or not many persons will invest in a business or expand their businesses if our streets and neighborhoods are not safe. Crime is a far-reaching issue. It impacts the core of everyone's quality of life. As you know, one of my first actions as governor was to initiate an across-the-board assessment of all law enforcement operations in the territory. Upon taking office and during the assessment phase, Police Commissioner Delroy Richards began addressing key areas of weakness and security strategy. The Virgin Islands Police Department, as of this coming Friday, will have graduated 2 full classes of police cadets to become full-time police officers. The final assessment of the Virgin Islands Police Department and all law enforcement agencies completed by TMN consultants have been issued. Thus, Commissioner Richards and his team have shared the complete report with Senator Noble Francis Jr.'s Homeland Security, Public Safety, and Justice Committee. We have hired a director for the newly established Professional Standards Bureau. We've hired a consent decree coordinator and a compliance officer. In addition, since the implementation of the fiscal year 2016 budget, we're stepping up our recruitment efforts with classes being held in both districts. For the first time since 2008, when the VI Police Department was placed under a federal consent decree, the District Court judge commended Commissioner Richards and his team for their advancements the Virgin Islands Police Department has made under the consent decree requirements. Technical resources and prime technology tools such as laptops, recorders, and webcams have been purchased for officers. And we now have trained, certified shot spotter users and instructors. Even with its many challenges in the last year, the Virgin Islands Police Department confiscated and recovered over 161 weapons. Crime, in my view, particularly violent crime, remains unacceptably high. We have forged a powerful alliance and partnership with the United States Attorney for the Virgin Islands. We've integrated our local police officers in a number of federal crime task forces. I want to personally thank U.S. Attorney Ronald Shaw for his continued assistance and cooperation. Our Attorney General and U.S. Attorney have entered into a memorandum of understanding detailing how both offices can work together to aid in the reduction of crime in the territory. Tonight, I am pleased, I am heartened, I am proud to announce that the New York Police Department has approved our request to accept and train Virgin Islands police officers at the New York City Police Academy. Our Attorney General and the Legal Counsel for the NYPD are finalizing a memorandum of understanding and legal agreements so we may begin. In April of this year, the first 8 Virgin Islands police officers from the territory will be sent to New York City for training. All officers selected for this training will be asked as a condition of attending the academy to commit to a minimum period of service to the VIPD upon their return. All officers selected will have had to have passed their probationary period but have less than 5 years of service. Our objective is to dispatch 16 police officers per year representing both districts for full training at the NYPD Police Academy. Law enforcement training will not stop there. We will send more senior officers to specialized and leadership training courses in investigations, forensic science, traffic, and community policing. Last summer, we sent 23 police officers representing both districts of the School Security Bureau unit to the National Association of School Resource Officers for training. It is clear that a new and more comprehensive strategy is required to combat and reduce crime in the territory. And I have approved the Commissioner's recommendation for the Department to join the National Network for Safe Communities and to implement these new programs. Our challenges at the Virgin Islands Fire Services are no less. Under the leadership of Fire Director Clifford Joseph Sr., the fire services and its personnel will see significant improvements. The director has recruited 32 new fire recruits, and we will authorize an additional 53. This will help to significantly reduce our overtime costs. In addition, it is our plan to complete the infrastructure improvements needed to finally merge the emergency medical services with the fire department. By the end of this summer, hotel company located at Fort Christian will move to its new location. A similar facility in St. Croix will be constructed in Christiansted to house the company at Estate Richmond, as well as the administrative offices of the Fire Services Bureau. New facilities will also be constructed to replace the deplorable stations at Estate Grove Place and Coral Bay, St. John. Director Joseph will re-establish the Junior Firefighter Program and work on developing and deploying a certified hazmat team on St. Thomas. In bringing our firefighters and EMS personnel together pursuant to law, our ultimate objective is to contract with the Ryder Trauma Center at Jackson Healthcare Systems to provide EMS and paramedic training to our EMTs, paramedics, and firefighters. When my administration took office, we inherited a failed effort to modernize and bring the Virgin Islands driver's license into compliance with the Real ID Act of 2005. This failed effort has already cost the good people of this territory over $2 million. As a result, I met with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security officials and made 2 requests for an extension of time for the territory to come into compliance. Without an extension, Virgin Islands driver's licenses would not be an acceptable form of identification when traveling outside the territory. The territory has been granted an extension until 2018 to fully comply with federal law. Director Lawrence Olive of the Bureau of Motor Vehicles have assured me that we will be in compliance. I have asked the U.S. Department of Justice for help to determine where the $2 million gone. Where is the $2 million of federal funds that have been spent for the Real ID system, where it has been spent and who has received it? In 2015, Attorney General Claude Walker launched Operation Support Our Children, an initiative designed to recover nearly $30 million in unpaid child support. The launch was accompanied by an aggressive public campaign to notify delinquent parents of their obligations. Flyers were posted, certified letters were sent, and public service announcements were made, resulting in significant collections and payments plans being established. I'm proud to tell you tonight, in just its 4 months, the Operation Support Our Children initiative has resulted in $1.8 million being collected for the care of our children. This is unprecedented. Keep it up, Attorney General Walker. The Department of Justice will continue to work to recover as much as is owed to the children and their struggling single parents. The Attorney General successfully sought funding to aid in our investigation of complaints of price gouging and other unfair consumer trade practices, and the Justice Department recently was awarded a $150,000 grant to do this essential work in partnership with the Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs. To address crime and violence in the territory, the Department of Justice executed a memorandum of understanding which I encouraged and supported with the U.S. Department of Justice. That understanding calls for closer working relations within the Virgin Islands Department of Justice and U.S. DOJ to stem the flow of illegal weapons in the territory, to reduce violent crime, to prosecute illegal possession and use of firearms, and to vigorously prosecute those that commit these senseless shootings and killings which destroy our quality of life and places each one of us in harm's way. In the Attorney General's leadership, we will see the construction and operation of a state-of-the-art forensic laboratory, an improved and modernized medical examiner's office. The AG and I are working on a number of high-profile litigations concerning contracts of which the government is a party. Our local Department of Justice is also looking at crimes in the economy, and as well as taking serious view at crimes and corruption in the public sector. The DOJ is currently relocating its paternity and child support offices to a new location, and we will fund a justice complex on St. Croix to house the many divisions and offices paying rent that are scattered about the island. We have also made progress at licensing and consumer affairs. Commissioner Devin Carrington took an aggressive approach to protecting residents from fraud, price fixing, unfair labor practices, and illegal gratuities. The Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs is working with our Justice Department on a comprehensive study on gas and food prices to determine how we may address this high cost of living and the adverse impact that it has on all Virgin Islanders. Last summer, the Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs took steps to investigate the hiring practices of a subcontractor of one of our instrumentalities, which resulted in a minimum fine of about $25,000. While the revenue might not be significant, the message is clear. The Mapp administration will enforce our labor laws, especially when it comes to hiring Virgin Islands residents. My fellow Virgin Islanders, our islands are simply too filthy. Again, let's embrace another truth. It is we who live here that are throwing trash alongside our roads. It is we who live here that throw fast food wrappers, drink containers, beer bottles, and cans from our vehicles. It is we who live here who dump appliances, mattresses, tires in our gutters, in the bushes, and it is we who trash our neighbor's property. In short, it is those of us who live here that trash the U.S. Virgin Islands. Tonight, I say it must end. It must end. Tonight, I ask the people of the Virgin Islands not to force your government to impose a tax on the community simply to clean up behind ourselves. We are really a better people than that. This year, I'm proposing reforms and policies to better guide the operations and the work of the Virgin Islands Waste Management Authority so we can have a cleaner Virgin Islands. The agency's primary purpose or task cannot be limited to emptying our dumpsters. The agency's primary purpose must be to aid the community in properly managing solid waste, its wastewater systems, and its landfills. So here's what we're going to do. Later this week, I will submit 3 pieces of legislation to this body. These proposals will offer new vision for Virgin Islands solid waste management. They will provide a new strategy on how we should move forward to protect public health and preserve our beautiful, pristine, and natural environment. We will begin with a comprehensive waste reduction program, which will require, as a matter of law, recycling and composting for all 4 islands. This law will include a refund value on every beverage container sold in our territory. Containers which will be refundable through reverse vending machines. The new law will require every citizen who generates waste in the territory to be responsible for separating solid waste in their homes and their businesses. This is hardly a new concept, but an idea whose time has come and is overdue in the Virgin Islands. The new law mandates that the Virgin Islands Waste Management Authority develop a plan for the collection and delivery of these recyclables and begin a public education effort territory-wide. The new law will also implement a ban on plastic checkout bags and non-recyclable paper bags. And in the end, Virgin Islanders will begin to perceive solid waste really as a valuable commodity and not an undefeatable challenge. Put all my friends on notice. My administration is dropping. My administration is dropping the long-held concept of waste-to-energy systems for the Virgin Islands as an option for managing solid waste. Let's not fool ourselves. We do not produce enough daily waste in the entire territory to support one 10-megawatt plant, much less two. And it is highly unlikely that we would receive an e-payment for such a plant without spending untold millions of dollars. Our task is to find buyers for the mineable refuge that exists in our landfills. In this process, we will open areas at the same site to manage recyclable and composting material. We'll export those portions of our waste that can be reused and sold. And I will ask the Senate to host public hearings as we seek to change course and manage our solid waste in a manner consistent with other developed nations. We have successfully renegotiated with the GEC Corporation on a fixed price concept for the Polly Joseph Stadium. We have selected a designer and construction manager, and the project is progressing and demolition is complete. The Polly Joseph Stadium and surrounding reconstruction is a core piece of the revitalization of Frederiksted. This includes implementing the flood mitigation plan for Estate LaGrange and the Frederiksted town. We will need to purchase land surrounding the project to implement flood mitigation systems, as well as expand the opportunities for more sports activities. We have approved a contract where residents will soon see major improvements and repairs taking place along Strand Street Waterfront Park, the Vernon I. Richards Veterans Memorial, the Mapp Clock Tower, the Vincent Mason Senior Pool, and the Butler Park, and the apron at the Abramson Marine Terminal. As we work to improve our overall quality of life, we can't overlook the importance of all of our recreational facilities. The Virgin Islands Department of Sports, Parks, and Recreation has taken some initial steps over the last year. When we began making our official assessments following the 2014 elections, Lieutenant Governor Potter and I found the majority of our facilities in deplorable condition, a sad reflection of the lack of concern shown in recent years for our young people. As a sports enthusiast, Lieutenant Governor Potter expanded his role to assist in working to upgrade our territory's ball fields, parks, and playgrounds, and has spearheaded a new program that asks private businesses to sponsor and maintain local public parks throughout the territory. I applaud the Lieutenant Governor for his continued efforts and thank those entities in the private sector that have stepped forward and taken on a number of these parks. We are also looking at 5 facilities with a plan to completely rebuild with modern and up-to-date amenities. These facilities are the Lionel Roberts Stadium in St. Thomas, Kramer's Park Beach and Recreation Ground, the park at Altoona Lagoon in Christiansted, and the Winston Wells Ball Park, including the Department of Sports, Park, and Recreation facilities and offices on the island of St. John. We will host a series of community charrettes on each island to garner input from the public. There are also plans underway to rebuild the Horace Clark Ballpark in Frederiksted and to make major improvements in the offices at Joseph O'Bain Ballpark in Frenchtown. In the coming months, a major goal is to expand the after-school programs and to work to keep our young people engaged in positive activities. Lieutenant Governor Potter and I have kept our pledge. Senior centers in the territory are now open 5 days per week, including the second center on St. John. The Department of Human Services is also serving our seniors nutritious breakfast and a lunch territory-wide daily. We have I do not attend the lunches. We have provided staff increases. We have provided staff to increase the level of physical activity in the centers, and we have restored funding to the pharmaceutical assistance program for those who qualify. The Herbert Gregg Home for the Aged has opened its stimulation room last year, the only one of its kind in the Caribbean, to aid our seniors who are afflicted with Alzheimer's and dementia. We even use part of Stanley and the 10 Sleepless Night in the stimulation center, and it's amazing to see how some seniors who are deeply afflicted with these horrible diseases respond and react to the stimulation. Under our capital project budget, we will restore and reopen the historic Aldersville Senior Citizen Center in Frederickstead. On St. Thomas, we plan major renovations at the new Hanson facility to include modern restrooms at the Strive Senior Center. The Sugar Estate Senior Housing Facility, a $31 million investment by the Virgin Islands Housing Authority on St. Thomas, will be ready for occupancy, and we will have, I'm told they will have, a ribbon cutting sometime in spring 2016. Under the leadership of Human Services Commissioner Vivian Flood, more than 600 new families receive child care subsidies. We've launched a major initiative to help pre-qualify those who are eligible for medical, nutritional, and other services. The department is also working with our hospitals to determine Medicaid eligibility for the uninsured to decrease the cost of uncompensated care. The Commissioner's proposed plan to consolidate the various divisions and offices of the Department of Human Services into a single centralized location on St. Croix is a good one. If accomplished, our plan will provide better access by the public, but more important, realize a direct operational cost reduction of some $500,000 a year. We require a great deal more work in the area of healthcare, and this will be our major focus for the administration in the year ahead. I have assembled a team to reorganize the hospitals and the Department of Health to offer a more comprehensive and modernized platform for healthcare delivery in the territory. I want to read, and I'm going to introduce someone to you. Given the many challenges in our health department, I solicited the support of the Honorable Sylvia M. Burwell, Secretary of Health of the United States Department of Health and Human Services, with the urgent issue of rebuilding public health in the Virgin Islands. You know, we spoke about that at length last year, and how many of our federal grant dollars for healthcare services have fallen into jeopardy. The Honorable Secretary of Health agreed to assist us with strengthening the management capabilities of our health department, utilizing the Intergovernmental Personnel Act process and the IPA Mobility Program. This avenue and vehicle provides for the temporary assignment of personnel between the federal government and state and local government. Ladies and gentlemen, and the people of the Virgin Islands, I wish to introduce to you the Mapp nominee for the Department of Health, hailing from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Dr. Michelle S. Davis. Dr. Davis, please stand. Dr. Michelle Davis currently holds a position of Regional Health Administrator for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in the New York Regional Office. The Regional Health Administrator serves as the principal federal public health authority in the region for the Secretary of Health and Human Services and the Assistant Secretary for Health and the Surgeon General. Dr. Davis has worked as a public health professional in a variety of positions at the federal, state, and municipal level. She served as the Deputy State Health Officer for the Pennsylvania Department of Health, where she oversaw a budget of $250 million and managed over 600 staff members who provided service in the areas of epidemiology, policy, planning, community health, public health preparedness, response, recovery, emergency medical services, and statewide laboratory testing. Dr. Davis matriculated at the University of Michigan, majoring in biology, psychology, and education at the undergraduate level. She continued her education at the University of South Carolina, Johns Hopkins, and the University of North Carolina, where she majored in epidemiology for her graduate degrees. Dr. Davis is quite familiar with our challenges. As you could say, she knows what she's getting into, as she has worked closely with us since last year on the federal level in addressing many of the challenges such as staff recruitment, professional development, outbreak response, public health communication, data collection, vital statistics, and grant management. She was also instrumental in organizing and facilitating the first ever Center for Disease Control comprehensive site visit to the U.S. Virgin Islands, as well as mine, Virgin Islands governor's first visit to the CDC to learn more about public health care transformation, and yielded federal and private sector commitments to provide long-term public health technical assistance and training. Dr. Davis's experience as Deputy State Health Officer for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, Deputy Commissioner of Health for the City of Philadelphia, and her experience as CDC epidemiologist will be a great asset for the territory. Many benefits are anticipated, especially in the area of efficient and effective use of federal funds. I want to personally thank Dr. Michelle Davis for agreeing to work with us here in the Virgin Islands and for being here tonight. I will be sending her formal nomination down to the 31st Legislature in several days, and I want the people of the Virgin Islands to know that this is working out to be a 2-year loan agreement between the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the government of the Virgin Islands. The plan is not only to turn our public health services and provide and roll out real mental health services for those in our community, and maternal and child health care services, and all of the lack of data that we collect with the demographics of health care in the Virgin Islands, but to also be able to train and provide guidance to the next generation of leaders for the Department of Health. Dr. Michelle Davis, I welcome you to the Virgin Islands. Thank you for your willingness to serve. I ask you to rise and let the good people of the Virgin Islands see how good and professional person who is uniquely aware of our issues in the Virgin Islands, willing to stand and help us do our job. Thank you so much. This coming year, you will also hear a great deal more about the commemoration of our 100th anniversary as an American territory in 2017. U.S. Virgin Islands Centennial was enacted in April of 2010, yet very little progress had been made prior to last year. I'm pleased to say that the Centennial Commission has rapidly ramped up in the past 4 months, hosting 6 history presentations related to our pre-Columbian period. We will see many more activities commemorating VI heritage and history in 2016. The Commission has hired its executive director. His enthusiasm for this commemoration is matched by his passion for our culture and history. The Commission hired him. The Commission has begun hosting a monthly 2-hour radio program, and a schedule of events will soon be available on the Centennial Commission website, now under construction. Commissioner Carlos Robles is actively, Robles? Help me with the Spanish. Robles. ¿Habla español? Sí. Commissioner Robles is actively working to create a farmers cooperative. I digress, I must. I can't say arroz con pollo. Actively working to create a farmers cooperative con habichuelas. Through his efforts, the department has begun to develop programs to assist farmers in promoting and marketing their products. The Agriculture Revolving Fund now has access to $1 million annually to begin our farm to table program for school lunches at the Department of Education. I want to personally thank the members of the 31st Legislature who voted and provided and shepherded this authority through on behalf of all of the children of the Virgin Islands, and for all of us who have to learn to eat more healthy and have less starch and less sugar. Your vote is a great motivation. I thank you. Our Farm to Table program for school lunches at the Department of Education will involve all of our local farmers who wish to participate. The Commission of Agriculture will be creating a farmers cooperative where members of that cooperative will have access to government agricultural land, seedlings, land preparation, and guidance on the planting, cropping, harvesting, storing, and handling of foods, for which the Department of Education through the Department of Property Procurement will work to procure so that we can reduce the amount of sugars and processed foods that we serve our school lunches more to fresh grown fruits and vegetables. The Virgin Islands Office of Veterans Affairs, under the leadership of Director Patrick Farrell, has made good progress, particularly with outreach and registering our local veterans. In 2015, Director Farrell opened ADA-compliant offices in both districts to house his agency. He hosted the first Veterans Appreciation Luncheon on each island and celebrated the Military Women's Recognition Month for the first time. This year, the Veterans Affairs Office partnered with WTJX and the VA National Guard to host an event commemorating the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War on all three islands, creating the largest gathering ever of Vietnam vets here in the territory. We're going to continue to work to expand services locally and support the men and women who have sacrificed so much for our territory and our nation. Director Farrell's work is significantly important. Earlier last year, we had a veteran, Vietnam veteran, who had committed some violent crime and was incarcerated at Golden Grove. And during his incarceration, when it was getting time for him to be released, he assaulted another prisoner. He got more time. In one of his reviews before the Superior Court, this prison recognized that he was going to be released shortly. And he advised the court and all those involved in the courtroom that should he be released, his ultimate plan was to murder the first person that he came in contact with, because he could not live outside of the penal institution. Many persons of couple of the branches of government got together, and the Department of Health was able to get this inmate off to a mental institution on the U.S. mainland. And it was beginning to cost the government significant amount of dollars. But he could not stay there because he wasn't adjudicated to be there. We were able to bring Director Patrick Farrell to the table, who got in touch with the Veterans Affairs on the mainland and was able to get the Veterans Affairs to accept that they are in fact responsible for this individual as a Vietnam veteran. And they, the Veterans Administration, identified an institution on the U.S. mainland and took complete guardianship and responsibility, relieving the territory of its singular obligation to house and care for this Virgin Islands. I want to thank Patrick Farrell for that work. Yeah, a lot of Farrells working for me. I want to thank Director Patrick Farrell for that work. And I said this story only so that many folks understand that the work at the Veterans Affairs Office, and Senator Justin Harrigan Sr. can attest to this as a former director, is really, really very important. And we have to continue to provide more support, more services, and more network for our veterans that live in the Virgin Islands. As a government, we concede we are not in control of everything. And honestly, we don't wish to be. My administration wishes to empower each of our residents to take control of their government, to have a say in how we manage their affairs. The Mapp administration is responsible for improving your roads. We will help to build and grow our economy, to create job opportunities and revenues for our treasury. But we cannot do this without the help of our private sector partners. The Virgin Islands is on the road to recovery, with many positive opportunities laying before us. But we will not make any progress if we are not willing to do the hard work, to be accountable for the tasks for which we were hired. We are prepared to embark on a capital project plan to invest in our infrastructure so we will spur new business growth and investment. This means we must invest in our greatest resource, our people. My administration has demonstrated that we can resolve our business conflicts, yet seize upon new business opportunities. I need the help and the courage of this august body. Change requires courage. It requires optimism, and it requires confidence in oneself to know when it is time to act. I have every confidence in the people of the Virgin Islands. Last year we promised we would demonstrate a creative approach to governance. We pledged innovation, efficiency, and accountability. My fellow Virgin Islanders, the Mapp administration is working hard on these commitments. I am human, not perfect. Each day I hope to learn more and become a better governor. With your patience, guidance, and prayers, I will continue to move this territory forward. Each of us in this administration will do so. I thank my fellow Virgin Islanders for your support, good wishes, prayers, and your continued generosity of goodwill that so characterizes the people of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Thank you. May God bless the United States Virgin Islands and the United States of America. Good evening.